So what I really wanted to talk to you about was how to switch niches in a way
Awesome.
that makes sense. And I feel like I talk to people in the abundance community and they're like, well, Allison says this and she says this. I'm like, I need to talk to Allison.
Let's do it. Let's do
Yeah.
it.
So I started my practice about 2.5 years ago, and
Mhm.
my focus is eating disorders.
Love
So
it.
individuals for adults and for teenage girls. So
Mhm.
the teenage girls kind of took off.
Mhm.
And right away, I got a lot of, I had some good connections in the inpatient hospitals I had worked in and with other, just programs I'd networked with and dietitians. So I got referrals just right off the bat, which was great.
Yeah.
After my son was born about 2 years ago, I sort of just like lost my spark and I've maintained, but I couldn't get myself back into it. And I wasn't sure if it was burnout or if it was because, I just wasn't inspired anymore. And
Mhm.
I have just really come to realize that even though I'm well trained in eating disorders, it brings me no joy.
Okay. What a great realization. I mean, so many people are like, well, I'm good at it, so I guess this is just my thing. Doesn't have to be. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know what
Yeah.
your thing is?
Yes, I know what my thing is. I just don't
Okay.
know how to get from one to the other. So
Mhm.
my real passion is like my background's in domestic violence, and
Mhm.
I don't feel like it's compatible with the type of practice I want to have to go into domestic violence work, but like I'm really passionate about teaching especially teens and adults like what healthy boundaries look like, how to
Mhm.
identify your boundaries, how to communicate it, and healthy relationships, but not within the couples therapy world.
Mhm.
Very much in individual therapy, in groups, presentations, like that's a dream for sure.
Mhm.
But so I've like slowly started moving my practice a little bit towards that, but I'm
Mhm.
so scared to let go of the eating disorders. And I know it's scarcity mindset because
Right.
I don't know how to network with people or like market when it's not something as specialized as eating disorders.
Right, right. It's kind of set up nicely for those of us who work with eating disorders, right? It's like,
Yeah.
it's an easy list of people to network with. It's a specialty that a lot of people don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. It's
Yeah.
like, there are lots of great referral sources and there are treatment centers. And so, yeah, I
Yeah.
get that. And I can tell you thousands and thousands of therapists I've helped who don't have that kind of niche fill their
Mhm.
practice. And you're in this great circumstance where you're going to continue to get eating disorder referrals probably until the day you die. You can always turn them away, refer them to other people when you get to a
Yeah.
point where you no longer want to serve that population at all. And
Mhm.
in the meantime, you can continue to work with them. That doesn't mean your website has to speak to them. It can speak to the
Yeah.
new population. You'll continue to get these referrals because people trust you.
Yeah.
So the good news is you're not going to starve in this transition.
Right.
That's important, and pun not intended, but it worked out. Um, so so you told me like what you want for your new client population. What are they coming into therapy for? Like, how do they describe what's going on for them?
So they describe it as, definitely from like a feminist lens of
Mhm.
I wasn't allowed to have boundaries, like it's just making other people happy. I don't want to make anyone angry. And they
Mhm.
feel so disconnected of like, I don't like how I'm being treated, but I also don't know even what I want or how to communicate with others and how to feel safe in communicating it.
Mhm. Got it. So some
So
people pleasing.
definitely.
So it sounds like you're taking a lot of the like personality structure of our eating disorder clients and putting it into this new niche without the food and body discussions in the same way, but taking a lot of that personality structure.
Mhm.
Um, and you will probably slash may end up having a lot of like recovered people who come to see you, where
Yeah.
like some of this underlying stuff needs some more work, but they haven't engaged in any eating disorder behaviors for 5 years or something like that. And they
Mhm.
recognize this is a trigger for them that needs addressing.
Yeah.
Um, so if they're coming to you feeling like they're people pleasing, their needs aren't being met, do they know what their needs are? Have they lost track of those?
They've lost track of those. So
Okay.
a big part of it is like the IFS approach, like how to sort of ground into themselves who they are today. And I also take
Hmm.
an ACT approach. So who do you want to be essentially,
Yeah.
right? And so a lot of identity exploration.
Okay, fun. Fun. Good stuff. Okay. Um, so the tricky part with this kind of niche is that most therapists, if they have room in their caseload, will take them on.
Yes.
But you've been established in the community for a while. You know the other full therapists.
Yeah.
You may know mostly the full therapists within your niche, but I'm sure you know others who refer to you because they don't touch eating disorders with a 10-foot pole. But they've been full forever and will continue to get calls, and we'll get some calls for these folks, and you can let them know instead of just referring me all the eating disorder folks, which thanks for all these referrals. I'm looking at kind of the personality construct that often goes along with eating disorders and the relationship issues that they're having. So you can talk to your common referral sources, maybe not the treatment centers, but your other ones.
Right.
And they'll still continue to be good referrals for you, not just with eating disorders, but also with your new niche.
Yeah.
I would make your website entirely about this person. You'll still have the eating disorder people come because people trust you and because the personality construct you describe is them also often. So, so that dynamic will be real. And it is okay to refer those folks out as you're talking to them. So I just want to say that because like I said, there are not enough people who treat eating disorders, and people clearly trust you. And so that doesn't mean you have to continue to see people with eating disorders just because.
Yeah. Do you think it's worth, because right now I just actually redid my website and I'm happy with it, but I did still include a page of eating disorders just to, I don't think it's the focus anymore. Like it's clear that's not my primary. I still have that on there. But again, like I just, anytime I have to, anything with eating disorders, I'm just like it's just, I'm over it, you know?
Yeah. What if you hid it for now? Does that feel like non-committal enough to just hide it from, like it's not published or unpublished, that one page? And that way, if you get into a place where you're like, I need clients and nobody's calling, you can just pop that baby up, let your referral sources know. I'm not really worried that that's going to happen, but I think just as an emotional safety net for you. So I would say hiding it for now or unpublishing that page, talking to your common referrals people. Where do you get, it sounds like networking has been your primary. Are there other places that you've gotten clients?
Psychology Today, but primarily word of mouth. People send people to me, which is great. But then I think about the work they do, and you're so right. They would take something like that on, right? Because it's not as specialized per se.
Yeah,
you know?
but you've been established for a while, so they probably have been too, and are likely full. And if they're not full in August, they will be full in September, that kind of thing, you know?
That is true. Yeah.
So, yeah, I would talk to them. You may not need to do anything else, but if you want to make sure that you're like doing all the things that you can, we can go through some of the other marketing strategies that are popular and effective, like SEO. SEO is going to require blogging. I don't know how you feel about writing.
Love blogging. Yeah.
Okay.
It was on my list, but again, without eating disorders, I'm like, I don't really quite know what to blog about.
Ooh, let's talk about it then. Let's get you a list. Okay, so we think about our people pleasers. We always want to have titles that pull people in. You could have one that's called, "Are you an asshole for saying no?"
Oh, that's a good one.
Or a bitch, depending on like what your client says in their head, you know? So I would take whatever's in their head and make it a title. So you could have that, you could have like something about their anxiety when they set a boundary. I was just talking to a friend who's like magic at setting boundaries. And I was like, does it make you nervous? And she's like, I mean, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but not really. And I was like, how? How do you do this? Like I set the boundaries, but I'm like inside. So maybe something like, why are boundaries hard for you? And not other people.
I like that.
What's underlying all of this for them? Like, what's the juicy, meaty stuff they don't realize they're coming into therapy for?
You know, one thing that I've noticed, and I don't know if this is quite it, but it's just not being seen. Like they were put in a box a little bit by society, by family, by whoever, and they just learned to not take up too much space and stay in that box. And that's kind of following them into adulthood.
Yeah. Okay. Juicy. So you could talk about the fear of being seen. How does this person Well, what age are they?
I love teenagers, but
Okay.
I also work with, adults as well. Like my caseload for people who fit in this are anywhere from 20 to 75.
Okay. So you can talk about this of like people pleasing across the lifespan.
That's a good one.
And like your homepage, I want you to hit what this looks like across the lifespan. Like as a teenager, X, Y, and Z happens.
Yeah.
And speak to the parents in that. Like you may see your daughter experiencing X, Y, like she's saying yes to things. You worry that she might be saying yes to things you don't know about that
Yeah.
are not in her best interest. Like speak to the parents' concerns there.
Yeah.
Because this teenager is probably getting good grades. She's probably like,
Yeah.
like a pleasure to have in class,
Yeah.
all of these things, a good friend,
Yeah.
really, really impacted and affected when there's drama in the friend group. So you can talk about that and how the parents see her mood being so volatile based
Yeah.
on the people around her and her environment. And then you can talk about what that looks like in young adulthood when you're out on your own for the first time. So like maybe
Yes.
college or post high school. And you're still speaking probably to the parents to some extent,
I think so.
because
Yeah.
they're the ones paying.
True. Very
So
true.
kind of making a hybrid of like what that feels like for her and what the parents observe,
Yeah.
like their anxiety about it all. And
Hmm.
then like being a grown woman dating or in an early marriage or something like that, and talking
Yeah.
about how the people pleasing makes like the dating doesn't, they have a hard time finding a partner because they're not able to show up as themselves because they've kind of lost track of who that is.
Yeah.
They're really good at reading the room and knowing what's expected of them on a date.
Yeah.
So for some of these folks, that means all the dates really like them because they're showing up as the mirror for what they want. And for some
Hmm.
of these folks, they're not great at the portrayal
Yeah.
of that person that they are trying to be. And so their dates don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Like they don't get the second dates because people are like, I don't know, she just seemed kind of off or kind of desperate or kind of whatever.
Hmm.
Talking about it as a mother and how that's so hard. Um, So just kind of like working your way and then the stages of motherhood, right? Like a mother with
Yeah.
young kids versus a mother with teenagers where you're automatically stupid, like everything you say is dumb to the people you love most in the world.
Yeah.
And how you want to please them and you can't. And you want to work, like ideally you work on this stuff before you get to that phase.
Hmm.
Because it just hurts so much.
Yeah.
So there's lots of really good, and then you can make a blog post out of every single one of those and link to
Yeah.
it
I
section.
love that. Yeah.
So,
It's funny you talked about like talking to the parents because I'd love to make a group for parents on how like because first I was like, well, a guide on, if you notice originally it was like, is your child starting to date and are you concerned, right? Like how do you like teach your child healthy boundaries and relationships as they like get older? But I also like the people pleasing, like, do you feel like, are you the parent of a child who has to be perfect all the time and is like super critical?
mhm.
Um, I thought about that, but I have no idea how to market groups. I've run groups. I did family therapy, but I just don't know how to market for that as well.
Mhm. Yeah, groups are tougher because it's more people at the same time, and
Yeah.
that can be harder. We have in the party a really great training by Katie K. May on how to start and fill a group. So that would be a good one to look at. Yeah, and thinking through, she has you think through like, do you want this to be an ongoing group? Is this a closed group, an open group? Like, how's it working?
Yeah.
So, and based on that, you're going to do some different things. Ultimately, like you're so well connected already. You may end up getting a lot of eating disorder parents whose daughters fit this profile
True.
plus an
Yeah.
eating disorder. So you could fill your group with that if the eating disorder piece, if you were clear with them that we're not talking specifically about eating disorders here, we're talking about some of
Yeah.
these like behaviors and presentations and
Yeah.
how to support your daughter through what's probably very difficult for them.
Yeah.
Um, I'm thinking about how like with OCD, how reassurance is like the worst possible thing you could do. And how it's very similar with
Mhm.
this dynamic as well, because that's the knee-jerk reaction for any parent, and reassuring your daughter that nobody's mad at her, or
Yeah.
what she did is fine, or whatever. Like it doesn't help her.
Right.
Um, so you could do that with group. I would make the switch without groups first,
Okay.
personally,
Yeah.
just to take some pressure off.
Yeah.
Start to get those clients in the door. And you may end up having some teenagers you're seeing where the parents are, you're getting the vibe that they would benefit from some support, in which
Yes.
case you could let them know.
Yeah. And I love that point about how it very well could be parents whose child has an eating disorder, because that I could fill that very quickly, I think, just with the
Yeah.
parents I work with, and not work with specifically, but with their teens. And
Mhm.
so yeah, so no, that's really helpful. I actually didn't even make the connection between how much this profile is similar
Mhm.
to eating disorders. So that
Yeah.
definitely feels a little bit less scary.
Yeah. And you know your ideal client so well. You've been working with her for years. She just had this other way of dealing with it.
Yeah.
And so it's thinking about like how without the food stuff, how is this ideal client dealing with it? Is she crying in her room? Is she scrolling on social media? Is she like
Yeah.
um thinking through how all of that going on inside is manifesting
Yeah.
outside?
And the food piece is going to be there, but
Right. It's America.
right, right. Yeah, but it's just the idea of, losing the dietitians, right? Because I get so many from dietitians, and they're not going to, I mean, their goal for their programs is eating disorder support. So,
Mhm.
yeah, so that part makes me a little nervous. And what are, do you know how successful people are if they market to schools? Like there's some private schools in the
Mhm.
area that are, I thought might be a good idea, but I'm not sure how successful people are with that.
Yeah, I mean, if you get an in, like with a
Yeah.
counselor, if they're willing to meet with you, it's public schools are harder to get an in with.
Yeah.
The private schools are not quite as hard. You can usually just kind of send an email or call the front desk and ask to be transferred and chat.
Okay.
Um, so I would get in touch with the counselor there. Um, See if you can bring food. Like I know your day's super busy. Can I bring lunch? And I just love to network and chat. Um,
Mhm.
and if they're like, oh, I'm too busy to do that, then I would have like kind of a little script written out,
Yeah.
so that you're succinct, because we can be very wordy, and
Mhm.
just talk about who you work with, because they're working with this, they've got the kids, they just can't do the same
Yeah.
level of support that you can, just because of the nature of their role.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And I mean, my practice gets tons of referrals from private schools, because we specialize in like teenagers with anxiety and teenagers with eating disorders.
Yeah.
So, we get a lot. Um, so, and I think the private schools, and my kids go to a private school, so I'm not trying to dog on private school parents, but I think that some private school parents that I've encountered have a lot of like Ivy League dreams for their kids, and they really are messaging things very young and intensely in ways that they don't realize they're doing. They don't realize the pressure they're putting on.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, kids often absorb that and internalize it.
Yeah. No, that'd be helpful to bring up in any sort of parenting group.
Mhm.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that when I think of like, what's my dream is building curriculums for these types of groups or presentations, even if I'm not the one that is, doing it. And I've done this for a nonprofit, and I just found out one that I wrote a few years ago had gotten a grant, and it's been running successfully for a few years.
I love
So,
that.
so I
Congrats.
know, thank you. Yeah, that was
Great
exciting. So
work.
I know I have the skills. I just don't know if that's really a common thing for therapists to do.
I don't know that it's a common thing, but I don't know that that needs to stop you.
Yeah.
Like if you enjoy the process of creating curriculum, and like it sounds like it's an opportunity for you to really get your message out,
Yeah.
then again, I would get your practice where you want it first, just because divided energy is divided energy.
Yeah.
You'll get fuller with your ideal clients faster if you focus there first.
Okay.
And then think about it, because I mean, there's such an emphasis on like social emotional learning, and I feel like people are really starting to value like the psychological health of anybody,
Yeah.
in ways that they haven't. There's a lot less stigma around even talking about it. So I think it could be really beneficial. And you could do it for different age groups too.
Yeah.
Or different like, would this be good in a corporate setting? Like, what's the corporate setting version of this, or things like that? You could do all sorts of interesting things with it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I do think that's like sort of I wouldn't say the end goal, but that's one that gets me excited. Because if I'm not excited about what I'm doing, I'm just like dragging my feet. It
Yeah.
is hard to get back engaged.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that you took the time to be honest with yourself, because it's really scary to say, like, this thing that it's my golden ticket. I don't think I want it.
Right. And that's sort of everybody's on the one hand, people are like, we'll do what feels best. But the other one, it's like, well, eating disorders, because there definitely is that scarcity mindset everywhere.
Mhm.
Like everybody's opening a private practice and there's not enough clients. And I don't necessarily think that's true, but
Good.
definitely when I talk to people, I get mixed messages, mixed response.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say, like, there are still way more clients out there than there are therapists. I mean, you get more referrals than you can handle, I'm sure, with eating disorders, because
Yeah.
there aren't other people to send them to.
Yeah.
Or more realistically, you don't know the people to send them to because those folks aren't marketing themselves.
Yeah.
Like, you're somebody's dream referral source and they don't know how to, they're not getting in touch with you about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so I think what I'm going to do is try to just keep my eating disorders part more like word of mouth. So if I have like a network or like someone I network with that I'm close with and they're like, can you please take this person? Yes,
Mhm.
that's fine, but maybe just not broadcast it
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Okay.
that's the smoothest possible way to do it.
Yeah.
It'll tamp down any scarcity that pops up, and you'll be able to like build over time the clientele that you want and maintain income. And as the people with eating disorders graduate from therapy or move or
Yeah.
whatever, they'll create space for the other population.
Yeah. Okay. So even though it's not a super clear reach out to the hospitals, it's not like there's nowhere to network or market this.
Yeah, plenty of places, plenty of places. Thinking about, like, where do they go? Are they like trying to funnel all their anxiety into yoga? In which case, can you do this talk at a yoga studio? Are they, do they have tummy troubles because they're so anxious and they can't seem to be good enough for themselves? If so, like, GI docs could be great. Um, so yeah, or PCPs or OBs. Sometimes there's that, like, I don't know if this is a gynecological thing or a tummy thing. Like,
Yeah.
I'll just go to a mom, try to figure it out. I feel like a lot of my clients have like ping-ponged back and forth when it's hardcore anxiety.
Yeah.
So
No, definitely. I've definitely seen that. Yeah. I wish there was a way to like have an ad on Tinder. It's like, is this not working for you? Because you may need therapy.
right, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, have like a really hot guy profile for the straight women.
Yeah. There we
Like,
go.
and then all the details are just like, don't you want somebody better?
Yeah. Are you tired of getting in the same relationships, not being seen? I wonder if that would be an interesting group of like not finding the one, like,
Yeah,
kind of just what that's like.
yeah, yeah. Because it's something so many, particularly like young women in their 20s, struggle with.
Yeah.
And it's almost like this funny thing that you tell your girlfriends about, and they tell you about their like weird dates and things like that. And it becomes this thing that's normalized.
Yeah.
Um, when actually, like, you can show up as yourself
Yeah.
and just be like, oh, this isn't a fit. Like, I remember it was my late 20s when I finally figured out, like, oh, I'm morphing and I don't want to do that anymore. And I'm just going to show up. And I would just be like 20 minutes in and be like, I don't think this is working. I think I'm going to head out. And
Yeah.
like, it was so empowering to just be like, I'm going to be fully myself. And if it's weird or awkward, I don't have to stay. I don't
Yeah.
owe that to
No,
anybody.
and that word is sort of what keeps coming up in my website and stuff, like empowerment. But
Mhm.
I need to make sure that I do keep it from like how people pleasing is impacting relationships, because it's the relationship and healthy relationships piece that really like, I'm like, yes, this is where I want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's that sense that nobody knows you, like you're saying, like nobody really
Yeah.
sees you. And then you grow resentful of all that you're holding or saying or doing for someone.
Mhm.
When like that's on you ultimately.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, like you just continue to like be a doormat and then get
Yes.
upset about it. Um, and I mean, that's the less empathetic version.
No,
Um,
it is what it is, though.
yeah,
That's sort
yeah,
of my approach. Yeah. Now, even
yeah.
just talking about it, I'm like, this is so exciting. I like feel like I have
Yes,
ideas again. And,
good.
not like, lunch and talk,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Good. I'm
Well,
glad. I see the spark in you. So that makes me
yeah,
happy.
I'm really excited. Thank you so much for the blog ideas. Cause I was
Yeah.
just sitting there, I'm like, I want to do like a boring, like, here's some signs that maybe like, so this is much more personality.
Yeah. Yeah. You could do like a same guy, different head blog where it's like you keep going on dates with essentially the same Brad.
Same
Um,
bullshit, different guy.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So fun. Cool. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. This is gonna be fun to see this like morph. So definitely like keep us updated in the Facebook
Yeah.
group.
Yeah, will do. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you
Yeah,
again.
absolutely. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.